Today I want to talk about this book right here, 0 to 1 by Peter Thiel, and I want to share some examples that really stuck with me, talk about and break down some things from the book and why I think they matter, and at the end I'll share some of my favorite quotes from the book. So why this book? Well, I started reading books last year and I've read a couple already, and even though I tend to have longer breaks in between a book or between different books, it's a hobby of mine that I really enjoy when doing it. And knowing that a friend of mine lent me this book, he said, "Hey, I know you're not reading too much at the moment, but this might help you and your business, because I am self-employed. I'm filmmaker and photographer." And he said that maybe another businessman's perspective on businesses, on startups, could translate to helping my own. And that's how I got to this book. First of all, it's a very interesting concept. In this book, Peter Thiel describes that instead of going from 1 to 2, so from something to a better thing, you go from nothing to a completely new thing, so from 0 to 1. And he describes it in a way that makes the step from 0 to 1 very significant and important for the world, for oneself, for a business. And I really like that. And the next 6 examples are stories from the book that I found really interesting, because they have similarities in my world today. This book is a bit older, so in no particular order we're gonna talk about it. And spoiler alert if you haven't read the book. All right, so the first story I want to talk about is the merger story. Why do I want to talk about it? Well, I'm particularly interested in the development of battery electric vehicles. For example, I've been a Tesla fan since about 2016-17, and always catching up on what BYD, what Tesla, what all these, what Zeekr's golden battery, what all this technology is up to. And particularly the merger story came to mind when writing the script, because I've seen an article that in Mitsubishi, Honda and Nissan are talking about a merger. And I've read about the merger here, and then I saw the article, and it came up what I read. So let's see what Peter Thiel wrote about that story in this book here. In 2011, HP and another company merged together, and Thiel argues that HP did it out of desperation or out of fear, and not being able to create something completely new. So about the book's concept, and that merger wasn't successful. Reactive mergers to avoid competition rarely work. You should focus on building a monopoly. All right, let's go to story number 2. If you want to read more about the merger story, just get the book. Peter also talks about niching down first, scaling up second. And particularly in the photography space, I have seen everybody talk about niching down, and you always hear this. That's why I want to talk about it. And this gave me a slightly new perspective on why niching down could be very, very useful, and just a new perspective on how others have been doing, how others have been doing it right. So let's get to the story. So in the 1990s, Amazon began by dominating online book sales, and they really niched down on that before expanding into music and different type of categories to sell. And that way they owned that niche, they dominated that, and were able to expand their infrastructure and just get better at having a business, being a business. And that really helped them in that way. So what's the key takeaway here? You want to start small, you want to own the niche, and then expand. You don't want to fight the big battles early when you don't have the resources to do so. Okay, story number 3 is about when you build a startup, how important it is to have sales and to really focus on sales. In PayPal's early days, they were looking for customers, of course. And I find it particularly interesting how they did it. So they went and manually recruited people from eBay, high selling accounts on eBay, having them join, and also getting some money for joining PayPal's payment system. And first of all, they had a good business. They had a good way to get these high selling people on eBay because of their instant payment PayPal business. And by giving them money to join, they had an easier way of selling. And that was very, very important. And why was it important? What's the key takeaway here? Instead of, throwing a big fish net into the ocean, you might wanna try and though the chances could be lower, throw that fishnet into a smaller pond with potentially a bigger success story behind that throw, with people targeting very high selling eBay accounts and not the whole audience and customers of eBay. And that helped them because they could really focus on sales, and sales is the second takeaway here. No matter how unglamorous your first sale is going to be, it is very important that you get to that first sale, and I can speak from experience about that as well. I had being self-employed, nothing scarier really than getting your first money handed to you. One tends to be particularly scared about that first step, but once you've sold, everything gets easier, because then you can focus on, hey, and that's always something that happens. You always think about, hey, could I have gotten a little bit more money from that by speaking a different way, or negotiating a bit better. So at least that's how it is for me, and I think that this story really resembles a lot of real life as business people. All right, let's move on to the next story. All right, story number 4 is the engineer's grail, and I think that is a particularly interesting story because it talks about perfectionism and how you should try to do what you can now and not what you dream on, what is unachievable right at this moment, maybe achievable in the future, but not right now. So perfectionism, we all know it. What happened in the book? What did Phil talk about? So Tesla in its early days, instead of trying to make the perfect car, perfect EV, which still nowadays doesn't exist, but they're a very wealthy and a successful company. They made a luxury sports sedan for very wealthy people, and that way they skipped the part where they have to think all day about the perfect car. They just made a car and started selling it, and that way one could say they got to where they are right now. So perfectionism doesn't help, and the engineer's grail talks about that very well. So let's see what the key takeaway is right here again. You don't want your obsession with everything and the product to be perfect to blind you from market realities. The truth is, a lot of stuff on the market is uncompleted and unfinished, but still works and does serve a purpose for a lot of people, and that in the end are customers that want your product. They don't want something perfect, and they can't get something perfect, but they get the next best thing. At least that's how it looks to me, and how it seems that Tesla got their success with the Roadster. Distribution is another big part that the book talks about, or that stuck out to me. We're going to talk about that in just a moment. But also you want to pair innovation with distribution. So you want to distribute your product whenever you can, because you are a business at the end of the day, and you need sales to continue being a business. And while you continue to distribute your products, you should pair that with being innovative as a company. You want to innovate and you want to distribute if you can, and if your company allows at the same time. And let's get on to story number 5 out of 6. Sales is everywhere. Sales is hidden, and everybody sells. I think that the book made this particularly clear, and it really opened my mind, and especially when Phil talked about the fact that everybody around you sells, and if there's no one around you that sells, you are probably the one that is selling. So that really opened my mind and showed that, as how he also said, that the world runs on sales. And the story that I want to mention, just a quick mention, is how Steve Jobs, with the launch of the iPhone, for example, and that was a very great example in amazing salesmanship. And if you want to know more about that, read the book. Let's get to the key takeaway for the 6th story. The key takeaway being that sales is more than just cold calls. It's branding. In my case, personal branding. It's storytelling, and also, of course, marketing. And you want to make it feel inevitable, your product. And a great chapter about that in the book. Let's get to the 7th and last story before moving on to the couple quotes that I have for you. Sorry, that now is the 6th and the last one. That being your distribution plan. And I've just mentioned that we're going to talk about it, and I think that is also a big chapter in this book that really stood out to me, and how important it is to have a distribution plan. Peter Thiel makes clear. That I'm sure. So let's get to the story. He mentioned Mark Zuckerberg, and when he started Facebook, he had this network for his student colleagues at Howard, and his distribution plan was simple yet effective. He spread from campus to campus. So he, instead of going online, first things first, he went to different universities, and I think that is a very nice strategy. Also maybe including a bit niching down and then expanding once you have a better business. And I think that's a very, very interesting and a good approach, looking at how he did it. The key takeaway being here that distribution is a core strategy. You should know how to scale your product, your business, before actually making the business, creating the product. And before you scale your business, once you have it, you should have maybe another one, maybe a readjusted distribution plan. I think Zuckerberg totally knew that it would be easy to scale his network, his Facebook network, by just adding more campuses, going to another university and adding those students, convincing them, hey, this is a nice product. And I think that is really powerful if you do it in that way. So a distribution plan matters. All right, and now that we are at the end of the video, I'm just gonna put this book right here. It was a great read, and I wanna get into a couple quotes that I have from that book that I've written down while reading that really stood out to me. And maybe if you like them, let me know down in the comments. And yeah, let's get into it. In the real world, outside economic theory, every business is successful to the extent that it does something others cannot. Right, quote number 2. The value of a business today is the sum of all the money it is going to make in the future. Once you're 10 times better, you escape the competition. You must study the elegant before anything else. Last 2 quotes. You're not a lottery ticket. Pretty cool quote. If you've invented something new but haven't invented an effective way to sell it, you have a bad business, no matter how good the product is. All right, so that concludes the quotes that really stuck out to me while reading. And I want to leave it right there. Interesting quotes. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed the review. Let me know down in the comments what you think. And see you guys. Talk to you guys in the next one.